Pawn Stars on the History Channel has been a hit among people all around the world since 2009. It brilliantly combines entertainment, history, and bargaining. Rick Harrison, one of the show's co-founders, has spent much of his life at the shop. He has worked hard to grow and extend the pawn shop company, even though he is clearly dedicated to growth. Rick has been through a lot of personal problems and legal issues that most people don't know about. Let's look at what happened to Rick Harrison and see how he's doing now. Richard Calvin Harrison, better known to fans as Rick Harrison, was born on March 22, 1965, to Richard Benjamin Harrison and Joanne Rue Harrison. They had 4 children: Sher, Joseph, Rick, and Chris. Rick was the third child. He lost one of his siblings when he was young, which was a tragedy for him. Sher Joanne Harrison Sherry was the first child of Benjamin Harrison and Joanne Harrison. She was born with Down syndrome and died when she was 6 years old. Rick's father was a U.S. Navy veteran, and in 1967, when Harrison was 2 years old, his family moved to San Diego, California, because his father was transferred there. Rick had problems that kept him in bed reading books a lot of the time when he was 8 years old and started having epileptic seizures. This sparked his lifelong love of books and reading. He especially liked a series by John D. Fitzgerald called The Great Brain, which was about a 10-year-old Utah con artist named Tom D. Fitzgerald. Harrison really liked physics and history, especially learning about the Royal Navy from the late 1700s to the early 1800s. He went to Taft Middle School in San Diego, but quit school in the 10th grade to sell knockoff Gucci bags for $20 a week. Rick and his family moved to Las Vegas, Nevada, in April 1981 since his parents' real estate business had failed when Rick was 17. Rick had another problem when his girlfriend Kim, who was still relatively young, got pregnant. Rick bravely chose to become a father, but sadly, the couple lost their first child to a miscarriage. They stayed strong, though, and got married. In 1982, they had their first child, Corey, on April 27, 1983. 2 years later, they happily welcomed their second child. Harrison and Kim broke up in 1985, not long after Adam was born. Rick wasn't a single dad for long, though. He started dating Tracy 9 months after his divorce, and they got married in 1986. Together, they took care of Corey and Adam. We talked about how Rick's interest in physics and history helped his career when his father launched a 300-foot-long second-hand gold and silver coin business on Las Vegas Boulevard South in 1981. Rick's knowledge of history greatly helped the shop do well because he could give historical context to each piece, but only at night. Rick was repossessing autos. 5 years later, the family moved to a bigger place on Fremont Street, but they had to move again after 2 years because they lost their lease, as he wrote in his autobiography. Rick said that he and his dad had wanted to turn the store into a pawn shop for a while because they thought it was the logical next step. However, a law from 1955 in Las Vegas only allowed a certain number of pawn licenses to be issued based on the city's population. So, they went to apply for a pawn license as soon as the city's population reached 250,000. By 1989, they finally got their pawn license after facing some legal challenges. That same year, the father and son opened the gold and silver pawn shop at 713 Las Vegas Boulevard South, not far from the Las Vegas Strip. At first, they focused on selling special sports items and unique historical pieces in their shop, but over time, jewelry became their best-selling item. Their business grew and became well-known in Las Vegas, and by 2005, they were lending out money. At first, the father and son's company only sold rare historical and sports objects, but over time, jewelry became their best-selling item. Their business developed and became well-known in Las Vegas. By 2005, they were lending out every year, millions of dollars earned hundreds of thousands of dollars in interest. The store became noted for carrying rare items the next year. A 2001 Super Bowl ring that belongs to a football player is an example of a sports item with a fascinating history. Brock Williams and others aided gamblers who needed money for gas to get home. Their development and popularity grabbed the attention of the History Channel, which led to the creation of Pawn Stars. The show began in July 2009. Brent Montgomery and Colby Gaines from Left Field Pictures came up with the idea for Pawn Stars while they were in Las Vegas in 2008. They loved the variety of interesting and shady pawn shops and thought that these shops could be home to unique characters. They looked for a family-owned shop to base a TV series on and eventually found the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop, which was less than 2 miles from the Las Vegas Strip. In 2001, PBS made a documentary about this store, and Rick, the manager and part owner, had wanted a show about it for years. Rick had been on the show Insomniac with Dave Attell in 2003 before. HBO was the first network to hear about the show, but they didn't like the original premise. They let it be transformed into the family-friendly style we originally called Pawning History. Later, it was changed to Pawn Stars to better reflect what they were shooting. The name is a funny play on words with porn stars. The show is taped in the famed Gold and Silver Pawn Shop in Las Vegas, Nevada, where jewelry is the most frequent thing customers at Pawn. There on Pawn Stars bring in a variety of old or vintage things. The store has more than 10,000 things in stock. During filming, the store is closed to the public, and only a few people who have been given permission can go inside. The Harrison family became very popular due to the show. Many people watched it, wrote good reviews, and wanted more, which helped the show grow. In January 2011, it grew again. On June 7, 2011, Pawn Stars was the most popular show on the History Channel and the second most popular reality show behind Jersey Shore. Rick Harrison gave his biography a license to pawn deals. Steals in My Life at the Gold and Silver, which became a New York Times bestseller on June 26, 2011, reached number 22 on the list. Rick and his second wife split up. Tracy. The next year, Rick Harrison, who had been married twice before, said he was getting married to Deanna Barrett, who had also been married before. Rick was glad that the show was doing well and that he was becoming more popular with viewers. He, Corey, and Chumley all played themselves in an episode of iCarly called I Went Crazy in Vegas. 4 days later, around this time, Rick married Deanna in Laguna Beach, California. He played the owner of an antique store in an episode of another show called The Middle. Rick got 3 stepdaughters, Serena, Kiana, and Marissa. In January 2014, Rick Harrison became the face of Microtouch. A few months later, the History Channel aired United Stuff of America, a show from the makers of Pawn Stars that looked at major objects from important historical events. It was the first time a men's shaving product appeared in a TV commercial. The History Channel aired the first episode of Game Show Pornography, in which Rick, Corey, and Chumley competed against players to keep them from winning cash and stuff from the Gold and Silver Pawn Shop's inventory. Unfortunately, a series of unfortunate events transpired to Rick and his family. Rick's dad died in June 2018. Richard Harrison, who played the old man on the TV show Pawn Stars, has died. Rick told more than 245,000 Instagram followers on Monday that his father had died from Parkinson's disease. A spokesman for the Harrison family verified the patriarch's death and gave the same message. Rick posted on Instagram a message from the History Channel saying how upset they were about the death of the TV star. They said, "We are very sad about the loss of our friend Richard, the old man Harrison, who was a beloved member of the History and Pawn Stars family. The statement says that we will miss his honesty and wisdom. Our hearts go out to the Harrison family during this difficult time." Losing his father made Rick very sad and left him in charge of taking care of the family and running the shop. Then, in 2019, the COVID-19 pandemic hit, which hurt the business and made things very hard for Rick. Many people were having a hard time during COVID-19, so one might have thought that pawn shops were doing well. If you were in a bad situation and needed quick cash, was the best place to go for quick cash, but that wasn't the case for many of these businesses. At first, business picked up at the start of the pandemic, but it didn't last long. In an interview with Fox News, Pawn Stars star Rick said that COVID-19 had messed up the pawn shop business. He explained that the industry as a whole had trouble getting back on its feet now that most people were only doing essential things. Visiting a pawn shop wasn't at the top of their lists to make things worse. Rick had to partially close his shop doors in March 2020 because the number of cases skyrocketed. The tourist section of the business was closed for 30 days, but the financial part stayed open. The Las Vegas Review-Journal reported that the shop's CFO said, "We kept buying assets and running the loan business through our night window 247 because obviously there were people who were hurting." Rick was still willing to battle for his business. In an interview with a local Las Vegas news station in April 2020, he said that he and the rest of the world-famous Gold and Silver Pawn Shop crew were ready to work harder. He went on to say that we cut the interest rate on products and offered them more time to pick them up. We understood. I've lived in this town for a long time, and it's given me a lot. I always try to give back during that interview. Rick also said that he thought the economy would get better in about 6 months. Unfortunately, we now know that wasn't the case. The Daily Mail reported that in 2020, the gold and silver pawnshop, which usually makes over $1 million a year, only made $37.46 because of the COVID-19 pandemic. On top of that, Rick had to deal with the stress of getting divorced from his third wife, whom he married in September 2020. According to court papers obtained by TMZ, Rick Harrison and Deanna Bditt seem to have drifted apart so much that they couldn't stay married. Rick argued in the lawsuit that they can't get along in marriage because their tastes, opinions, and interests are so different. TMZ also said that the divorce might not have gotten enough attention because it happened during the national protests over George Floyd. Rick told TMZ, "I got 3 great daughters out of it," referring to Diana's 3 kids from her first marriage. He also stated that the marriage didn't work out and that the divorce was a mutual decision. He also said that he has moved on from the father-daughter images. He recently posted on Instagram, and it's evident that he still thinks of his stepchildren as his own. Going off-road, Rick posted on Instagram on August 7th he has said similar things about more than one of his stepdaughters, so at least that's a good thing, even when things are hard. Rick took care of everything with help from his son Corey and his best friend, Austin Chumley Russell. A year later, Rick married his 4th wife, Amanda Palmer, with the hopes of having a better life with her. But in February 2022, Rick's problems got worse when he had legal problems with his own mother. According to USA, Joanne Rue today, Rick's mom, Joanne Harrison, is suing him over family assets and the gold and silver pawnshop. The civil complaint was filed at the Nevada State Court. Rick Harrison owns the gold and silver pawnshop. The complaint names Harrison Properties, Jorick Properties, and others as defendants. Running a family business can be hard and complicated since money issues can ruin excellent relationships. Sadly, this is what happened to the son and mother. Rick and Joanne's bond was really damaged by fights about money. The complaint his mother made charged Rick broke a contract by saying that his mother had been married to his father for about 60 years and that she had only woken up from a coma in the early 2000s. Rick made her sign over her 51% of the pawnshop's ownership to him. At some point this didn't help her at all because she didn't completely grasp what she was signing. Rick, in a good light as people who were following the story said that he was a family man who wouldn't hurt his family for money. The truth was that Richard died in 2018. His wife got his 49% part of the pawnshop, but it looked like her son never handed her the full financial records of the business. She said she hadn't gotten the right papers for more than $500,000 in cash and silver that she thought she had. She said Richard had before he died. Rick had ceased sending her money from her dead spouse. Richard's part of the business, Rick used to send her $25,000 every month, but he stopped doing it in 2020. Many people thought Rick's fortune was in jeopardy because reports said Joanne was also trying to obtain that allowance back through the courts. Joanne got a temporary restraining order against her son so he couldn't sell any of the family's things. The restraining order would also stop Rick from moving or hiding cash assets or doing anything else that would lower her stake in the family's business. The lawsuit also asked for unspecified damages, a full account of assets, and a court order to stop Rick from using his mother's money. He had to give up any control over her property through a constructive trust. However, Rick later said in an interview about the case that the accusations are false and that he thinks his 81-year-old mother is being influenced by others for their own gain. Joanne's request said that Rick likes his easy life as a famous person who runs all the family's businesses and finances. An article says that I am worried and don't know if I will have enough money to pay for my medical and personal needs each month. Joanne was more than 80 years old and had a lot of health problems that needed round-the-clock care. This care may cost as much as $155,000 a month. Rick stated he first found out about the request for a restraining order through the news. He replied, "I've tried to get in touch with her many times over the past few months, but I haven't been able to. In fact, one of the firms she is suing is owned entirely by my mother." The Pawn Star star looked perplexed by his mother's lawsuit, even though she was having a lot of trouble. In January 2024, Rick would get the worst and most devastating blow of his life. Rick's son died terribly. A public information officer in Clark County, Nevada, verified that the 39-year-old died from an overdose of fentanyl and methamphetamine. The Clark County Office of the Medical Examiner said that the death was an accident, but there were concerns when the landlord found him unresponsive on January 19, and the resident had not seen him since January 17. Harrison shared the news of his son's death by posting a picture of himself and Adam at a restaurant on Instagram with the caption, "You'll always be in my heart, I love you." Adam Harrison added a sad heart emoji to the caption. Laura Hervich, a family representative, said in a statement on January 22 that Adam died from an overdose of fentanyl. "We are very heartbroken about Adam's death, and we ask that you respect our privacy while we mourn." Rick also spoke out about the issue, saying that the fentanyl crisis in this country has to be taken more seriously. After Rick posted a beautiful tribute to his son Adam on Instagram, many people expressed their condolences. Donald Trump Jr. just said sorry, dude. Corey Harrison, Adam's elder brother, also put a picture of them as kids on his Instagram site. In the post, he said, "I'll always love you, Bubba." Even though Adam Harrison wasn't on Pawn Stars, he did work at Gold and Silver Pawn at one point and eventually became a plumber. Corey had said at first that Adam didn't seem to want to be on the show, even though he had a lot of troubles and misery in his life. Rick stays cheerful and hides his pain behind his bright smile. Rick supported Donald Trump for president and Daniel Rodimer for Nevada's 3rd congressional district in 2020. He even thought about running for governor of Nevada in 2022. Rick also stated he might run for the U.S. Senate in 2024. "A lot of individuals in the party have talked to me about it, and I always think about it. I haven't made a decision yet, but I'm keeping my options open." Rick got his Kentucky Colonel status during an episode of the Pawn Stars spin-off that was partly recorded at Locust Grove. He was inducted into the Kentucky Colonels in June 2023 in their grand parlor. The Kentucky Colonel is the greatest distinction the governor of Kentucky can confer. Rick doesn't work full-time at the Pawn Store anymore. Instead, he is now the star of Season 2 of Pawn Stars. Do America. Even though there are certain legal problems, Rick seems to be happy in his semi-retirement, where he still has reality TV fame and spends time with his grandchildren and family.